everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jordan with Fit Happy Free and it's time for Wine Wednesday. So today for Wine Wednesday, I do not have a Pinot Noir, I have a red blend. This is Cellars Legacy Red Blend. I brought this to a book club a while ago and it never got opened because there was plenty of other wines there, so I brought it home with me and I have just never opened it. And what better time to open it than for Wine Wednesday? I haven't done too many red blends. The last red blend I did was a little too sweet, so we'll see how this tastes. I'm excited to try it out. Smells like it's gonna be kind of sweet. It smells very fruity. So, when you hold it in your mouth, it's sweet in your mouth. Once you swallow it, it's a little bit more bitter. It's not too sweet though. I've had some wines that were way too sweet. I don't know if it's necessarily my favorite, but it's not bad. It's not too sweet that I don't want to drink it. It does have some very high fruit notes in it. You can definitely taste the fruit.
I taste notes of failure. Failure.
Notes of failure.
Disappointment.
I like the aftertaste, and it does, if you hold it in your mouth for a little bit before you swallow, you definitely get that sweet taste in your mouth. I typically would prefer a little bit more of a drier wine, but for a red blend, this is not too bad. And yeah, if you like something a little bit more on the sweet side, I guess I would recommend it. It could be a little bit smoother maybe. Bite's a little going down, but it's okay. So today I am going to be talking about books. But I'm not going to be talking about these books. Actually, the books that I'm going to be talking about, I don't have, because I either read them on ebook or I listened to them on Audible. So these are just for props. But I wanted to kind of go through the 5 books that I've read in the past year that I liked the most. So I'm going through my Goodreads and looking for the books that I read in the past year that I gave 4 or 5 stars to. So I'm going to start off with The Night Tiger. So I recommended this book to my book club. I saw it on Reese Witherspoon's Instagram, on her, if anybody follows her book club Instagram, I think, was it last year or the year before? I think it was last year that she had it on her Reese Witherspoon book club. And so of course I was kind of interested in it. And so I recommended it to my book club and it got picked. And I was super happy that it got picked because I really wanted to read it. And I was really glad that I read it. So it kind of was a slow read, but how do I explain this? So it kind of follows 2 different storylines. And one is about this girl, and her name is, what is her name? Jilin. And she works at a dance hall and she has a brother. And the other storyline follows a little boy and his name is Ren. So it takes place in the 1930s. And it takes place in China. And there's like these superstitions and about men who turn into tigers.
I saw tigers saw me.
And Ren, the little boy, he had worked for this doctor who had lost his finger. And the doctor wanted Ren to go and find this finger after he died, to put it in his grave so that his soul could be at rest. Something like that. It's a really hard plot to explain, but it was written very beautifully. I liked the way it was written. It was kind of a slow read, so I would recommend it. I ended up giving it 4.5 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it. I thought the story was really interesting, even though it was a slower read and it took me a little bit longer to read. I thought it was really good, and I would definitely recommend it. Okay, so the next book. Okay, My Lady Jane. I'll talk about this book. I gave this book 4 stars. So this book was just kind of a fun read. This is about King Edward in England, and he's dying, and Jane is this girl. She reads a lot of books, and she's Edward's cousin, and she's not really interested in romance. She's more interested in books. And then there's also, what is his name? Gifford. He goes by G. He's a horse.
Yeah, that's about right.
But he's actually not a horse. Well, he's like a man that turns into a horse. He's cursed. He wakes up at dusk with a mouthful of hay. It's very undignified. So this was kind of a fun, just old English book about King Edward and Lady Jane, and this plot. There's kind of a little bit of romance there. It was funny. There was just a little bit of romance. It's silly and it's lighthearted, and it's just kind of comical, kind of like Monty Python kind of jokes, and it's very entertaining. So if you like kind of historical, maybe not really historically accurate, then you might enjoy this one, with a little bit of kind of comedy and just kind of silly along the way, with just some fun. It was a fun read, and I would definitely recommend it, especially if you're a girl like me. I mean, it might be more of a girl book than a boy book, but it was fun.
Can we please get some alcohol into my mouth?
Okay, so the next one, I gave this book 5 stars. This is a Stephen King book. It's called The Institute. And I've read some Stephen King books before. The book that I read before this Stephen King book was Dr. Sleep. And I did enjoy that book, but it just took me, it took me a while to get into that book. And some of Stephen King's other books, he's a very wordy writer, so it took me a little bit of time to get into those books. The Institute, this one really got me hooked. Like, as soon as I started reading, and it was just, I wanted to keep reading every time. I actually listened to this one on Audible, and I kept wanting to listen to it. I didn't want to stop. I just wanted to know what was coming next and what was coming in next. It was very suspenseful. So it's basically there's this boy, Luke Ellis. So there's this little boy, and he gets kidnapped in the middle of the night and brought to this institute, and with all these other kids, and come to find out they're like doing these experiments on these little kids, and like with telepathy and with other special abilities that they have, and just the way that the tests are formed, and the way that they're treated, and the way that things go and things pan out. It was very suspenseful, and I really just I think it would make a good TV show or a good movie. But as a book, this was one of my favorites out of Stephen King's that I've read in a while, because it really I was hooked from start to finish, and I thought it was exciting, it was suspenseful. 5 stars. Have a sip.
Houston, we have a problem.
Alright, so the next book I'm going to talk about is called The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. I've read Ruth Ware books before, and I'm a fan of her books. I liked In a Dark Dark Wood, I liked Women in Cabin 10, and I liked The Death of Mrs. Westaway. So I've liked all her books pretty much so far. So I was pretty sure I was gonna like this one. The Turn of the Key, like just the sound of that and the cover just hooked me and just seemed like something that I would definitely go for. So this one was a fun book for me because I like thrillers, horror, suspense books a lot of times, just kind of mysteries. I'm big about mysteries. I'm just trying to kind of figure it out as you go along. So this one is about a nanny. And the book opens up with this gruesome scene and about this little girl that was killed, and you don't really know what happened. And this girl's name is Rowan. So Rowan is this girl who applies for this position to become a nanny for these really rich people that have this house that's completely smart. Everything in their house is smart and voice activated and touchscreen, like everything. So she starts babysitting or being a nanny. It's like a dream come true because she's living in this expensive house with all this great things, and her room is amazing, and it's just, easy work. She's just looking after these kids, and she gets her own room, and then things start happening. Things start happening at night, like the stereo system turns on, or something else happens, and you start thinking, is the house malfunctioning, or is somebody doing something, or is this really like something supernatural or something? Because she starts hearing footsteps above her in the attic, and things just start going a little different. And just things start happening one by one, and then there's this handyman, and so basically it's like kind of like a modern day, almost kind of like a modern day Agatha Christie kind of ish novel. I really enjoyed it a lot. Just the mystery of all of it, and just you're just wondering, part of it is like part of this like sinister, or part of this like supernatural, or is somebody really out to get her, or who's doing some of these things, or she did something bad, or who did something bad, like what really happened. And then when you get to the end, I was actually a little bit surprised by the end, and some people, when I was reading reviews, some people weren't really too happy about the ending. I thought the ending was fine. I was okay with the ending, and it really did kind of throw me for a little bit of a loop. And if you are a Ruth Ware fan and you haven't read this book, I would recommend it. If you like mystery, you like just kind of like suspense and mystery, if you're into that kind of thing, like Girl on the Train, that kind of mystery, just I would recommend it. I gave this one 4.5 out of 5 stars. I personally enjoyed it a lot. It was my kind of thing. Just really mysterious, kind of suspenseful. So this is the most recent book that I read. Let me drink for this one. So this book was the most recent book that I read. I kept seeing it on Goodreads. People that I follow were reading it, and I really wanted to read it. So I finally rented it from the library, and I listened to it, and I really enjoyed it. It's called It's called The Silent Patient by who's the author? Well, it's called The Silent Patient. And so this one, it was really, I like, if you like psychological kind of thrillers and mysteries, this one was a good one. So it started out a little bit slow for me, but just waiting to read what was going to unfurl next was really interesting. So the main character is this psychologist. His name is Theo, and he's married, and he wants to take up this case with this patient, this lady, Alicia Berenson. So she was this painter who was a famous painter, and she was painting, and she was great, and she was arrested for murdering her husband. She was found with her husband murdered, and he was tied up, and she was arrested for his murder. There was nothing else, like she didn't say anything, and she was basically mute. I mean, she was not mute before she was arrested, but once she got arrested, she did not talk. So she didn't defend anything. She didn't say anything. So basically, you're led to believe that she killed her husband. She did it, and I mean, it's pretty obvious that she did it throughout the whole book. But you get snippets of her diary along with Theo trying to get her to speak, because nobody knows why she's not speaking, or nobody knows how to get her to start speaking again, because she won't utter a word. She's just completely silent, and she wasn't before. So Theo, this psychologist, he takes it upon himself to become her doctor and try to get to the bottom of her and try to break her, try to get through to her, try to figure her out and figure out why she's silent, how to get her to talk again, how to get her to talk about what happened. And he starts investigating parts of her. I'm not giving anything away, but all of a sudden the ending comes, and I gotta tell you, this book was one of the few books where the ending really actually just threw me for a loop. So I was listening to this. I think I was listening to it while I was working out in the gym when the ending came, and I think my mouth literally just dropped. I was like, oh my gosh. I really enjoyed just the way that things turned out, the way that it ended, the way that it just really threw me for a loop. And it's just, I gave it 4.5 stars. I didn't give it 5 stars just because it took me just a little bit just to get into it, but once I was into it, it was great. And yes, I liked this one a lot. Recommend it.
Take a drink and you'll sink to a state of pure inebriation.
So overall, in the past year, those are my 5 favorite books that I have read and that I would recommend. I guess you can say that most of the genre that I read were kind of thriller, horror, mystery kind of. I read all kinds of books, but that was the majority of the books that I read in the past year. If you have any book recommendations, I'm for any kind of genre, or if you would like to follow me on Goodreads, I'll post that in the links in the description below. Leave me any recommendations for books in the comments below. The wine wasn't necessarily my favorite. I'll give this one maybe a 3 out of 5 stars. Not exactly my favorite, but it's not bad, but not my favorite. And if you like this, give it a thumbs up or subscribe and hit the notification bell. And I hope to see you next Wine Wednesday. Bye.